Efforts by his father and Jordanian officials to stop him from entering Syria through Turkey had failed. His father insists ISIL exploited his son.
My son was tricked and used and is a victim of ISIL. The last time we talked, he said it was the last time we'd hear from him. He asked for our forgiveness because he had signed up for a suicide mission.
In their sporadic contact, the La'in says his son called him an apostate, serving an apostate parliament. He says he is against his son's ideology and will continue to fight it as a member of parliament. Jordan increased its strikes against ISIL after the group burned alive a Jordanian F-16 pilot it had captured in northern Syria last December.
There is a feeling among the new generation of young men in the Arab world that they are defending a just cause. Whether in Syria or in Iraq, these men see fighting for these causes as a religious duty.
Officials have not commented on the MP's son, but the government's stand on fighting ISIL remains as is.
Jordan is a major member in the international coalition that is fighting terrorism, and we also cooperate in sharing security and intelligence information, and we project the true and peaceful image of Islam.
Around 3,000 Jordanians have left the country to join armed groups including ISIL and Al-Nusra Front, and more than 350 of them have been killed. Analysts say Jordan's fight against foreign groups abroad should also be complemented by a fight against extremism at home. They say efforts should not only focus on cracking down on those who promote what the government describes as terrorist ideology, but also on social and intellectual change. Nisreen Al-Shamaili, Al Jazeera, Amman.
Israeli security forces have put severe restrictions on Palestinians entering the old city of Jerusalem. This follows two separate attacks on Israelis by Palestinians. Al Jazeera's Mike Hanna reports from the occupied East Jerusalem.
The old city was in a virtual state of lockdown, for Palestinians who wished to enter, that is. Heavily armed police blocking all the access gates. The unprecedented security measures followed two separate knife attacks overnight. 2 Israelis were killed in the first and 1 lightly injured in the second. In each incident, the Palestinian attackers, both 19, were shot dead. Tourists continued to be allowed into the old city, slowly filing through the police lines, while Palestinian after Palestinian is being turned away. Israeli citizens are as usual allowed unfettered access, but the only Palestinians allowed to enter are those who own businesses in the old city or who are resident there. As for those wishing to worship at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, only men over the age of 50 are allowed to enter, and they have to come through this specific gate, a lengthy walk away from the traditional point of access. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's been in the United States during the past week of crisis, is coming under intense domestic pressure to take even stronger measures against the Palestinians. Even members of his own government are saying not enough is being done to combat what they call Palestinian terror. The Israeli army carried out several operations in the occupied West Bank, some related to the overnight attacks and others in the wake of the killing of 2 settlers on Thursday. And throughout the day it became increasingly clear that far from being confined to Jerusalem, the conflict was spreading throughout all occupied territory. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, in occupied East Jerusalem.
So lots more to come here on Al Jazeera, including it's election time in Kyrgyzstan, but 20% of people aren't able to vote. Plus,
these are some of the most intense rapids anywhere in the world. And for a few weeks each year, people flock here to risk it all for the ride of their life. I'm Gabriel Zondo on the Gauli River. That story coming up.
Hello, we've got some quieter weather making its way into southern areas of France now. The massive cloud and rain, the stormy conditions that caused the flooding across the French Riviera has now made its way down across central areas of Italy. It'll feed across towards the Balkans. Central Europe, Eastern Europe looking fine and dry, but more wet weather will push in across those western areas. Autumn storms rattling their way in from the Atlantic, so Spain and Portugal, western parts of France could see some localised flooding. And that poor weather will also make its way up across a good part of the British Isles. 19 Celsius in the cloud and rain there for London and also for Paris, and not too much better as we go on through Tuesday. So some really wet and windy weather coming in. The only consolation I can offer is with the winds coming in from the southwest or south, at least it's going to be somewhat warm rain. We've got plenty of rain continuing across central areas of Italy as we go on through this stage, actually into the middle part of the week. Notice some showers or longer spells of rain also pushing across a good part of Turkey. Cooler there for Moscow with a temperature of around 9 Celsius, but it will be dry. A lot of dry weather too across much of North Africa. A little more cloud there into northeastern parts of Libya. Benghazi at around 29 Celsius. Possibility of 1 or 2 rains, but any showers that we do have here will ease as we go on through Tuesday. Brighter skies coming in behind. Algiers with a high of 29.
Al Jazeera continues to tell the history of France's black community and its struggle to achieve rights and recognition. Africa answered France's call against Nazi Germany during World War II. But the ultimate battle for equality lay much closer to home. Blacks emigrated to French cities in search of work and a new life, but were faced with poverty, racism and segregation. The fight to gain acceptance in French society went on. Black France, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Time now for a reminder of the top stories here on Al Jazeera. The Taliban is reported to have retaken most of the northern Afghan city of Kunduz. That's despite US-backed Afghan forces earlier saying that they'd made more gains. Russia says it's carried out aerial bombardments against ISIL in Syria for a 5th day, but monitoring groups say the strikes have largely targeted other Syrian rebel groups. And Israeli security forces have put severe restrictions on Palestinians entering the old city of Jerusalem following 2 separate attacks on Israelis by Palestinians. At least 16 people have died in flooding along the French Riviera. In some areas, about 2 months' worth of rain is said to have fallen in just hours. Rob Matheson reports.
Cars litter the streets of the French tourist town of Madlo-la-Napoule. The cleanup begins, but some are still shocked by the memories of the deluge that swept through their little town.
The water was up to here. Somebody came to get me. I couldn't walk because of the water pressure. It was horrible. I can't talk about this anymore.
The city of Nice is estimated to have received 10% of its average yearly rainfall in 2 days alone. The force of the water was deadly. Many people drowned in their own cars, trapped in tunnels and underground car parks. Some managed to escape.
We arrived at this crossroads. A lot of water was coming down the 2-lane road and the car was taken away and left there. So we were forced to get out of the car through the window because the water had gone higher than the car windows.
French President François Hollande has visited the towns where rescuers are expecting to find more bodies as the waters finally begin to recede. Rob Matheson, Al Jazeera.
Objects have been found in the sea near where a cargo ship went missing in the Bahamas. A life jacket thought to be from the El Faro boat, which lost contact during Hurricane Joaquin on Thursday, has been found by the U.S. Coast Guard. 33 people are thought to be on board the boat, which lost power several days ago near Crooked Island. A shipping container has also been found, but the U.S. Coast Guard cannot say whether it belongs to the missing ship. At least 95 people are dead and hundreds more are missing after a massive landslide covered much of a town in Guatemala. Rescuers are still looking for survivors, but hopes of finding anyone alive are now fading. From Santa Catarina Pinula, David Mercer reports.
It's Guatemala's worst natural disaster in years. Part of this mountainside collapsed late Thursday, burying 125 homes under 1 million cubic meters of earth. Rescue workers and volunteers race against time, shoveling through mountains of dirt in the search for survivors. But today, all they found were lifeless bodies, a hard reality for many here.
6 of my family members are missing, my parents and 4 siblings. I haven't been able to rest, and I won't be able to until I see them again. But asking to see them alive is a lot. They're buried under 15 meters of dirt.
The landslide hit around 9:30 at night, when many people were at home. It followed days of near constant rain. Those who could ran out of their homes when they heard the hillside crashing down, but many didn't escape.
My neighbour's house was here, along this edge. When it was hit, everything was pushed back 2 meters. They're digging here, but they haven't found any survivors.
Heavy machinery was brought in by the army, and more than 1,600 rescuers have joined the search, motivated by signs of survivors.
Every 20 or 30 minutes you can hear a whistle blow and everybody stops working. That means that somebody thinks that they've heard a voice coming from underneath all this tons of mud and rock. But with this layered up 45 meters on top of the houses, many people here say that they're running out of hope.
Rescue workers have no plans to stop the search, but the moment the rain falls again, they could suspend the operation.
We can see that the hill opposite the slide also runs the risk of a landslide, and on the side that already collapsed, there's a fracture that could bring down more earth.
Some say this was a disaster foretold. In 2008, authorities warned local politicians that this ravine was a risk zone and that no one should be living here. David Mercer, Al Jazeera, Santa Catarina Pinula, Guatemala.
Well, Portugal's centre-right coalition has declared victory after Sunday's general election. Exit polls show the current Prime Minister, Pedro Passos Coelho, has taken a clear lead. His government introduced deep spending cuts and huge tax hikes in a wave of austerity measures during a 3-year recession. Well, speaking of elections, polls have also closed in Kyrgyzstan's parliamentary elections. It's been a test for the young democracy, which remains vulnerable to political instability after ousting 2 presidents during uprisings in 2005 and then in 2010. Al Jazeera's Robin Forrestier-Walker reports now from the capital, Bishkek.
Kyrgyzstan's biometric voting has made it much harder to commit electoral fraud, but with one major drawback. Voters who had failed to register in time, some 20% of the electorate, were unable to cast their vote. Still, the country's president believes Kyrgyzstan has set a new standard.
I think, it is great because many countries, some of them are not far from us, don't know what freedom and free and fair elections mean.
Freer and fairer may be, but Mr. Atambayev still has significant control over parliament. Preliminary results suggest his party is ahead, but will need coalition partners to form the next government.
5 years ago, thousands of people protested on these same streets to overthrow a corrupt regime. The result of that was an experiment in parliamentary democracy. 5 years on, and these transparent elections suggest that experiment may be working.
There's work to be done. Kyrgyzstan is racked by corruption and a chronically weak economy. But it could still set a democratic example to the rest of the region. Robin Forrestier-Walker, Al Jazeera, Bishkek.
The World Bank is to raise the so-called poverty line by 65 cents to $1.90. People are said to be living in poverty if they earn less than that per day. Fez Jamil has been to New Delhi to see how people there cope.
Crammed together, stacked haphazardly on top of each other. This is what many of India's urban poor call home. Saida's family struggles every day just to eat. She says corruption and bureaucracy mean her family doesn't get the ration cards or other benefits they're entitled to.
These are my kids, and they live like this. Today there's bread, but maybe tomorrow there's not. If we don't have work, where will the money come from?
With little outside help, this daily struggle has become a way of life for most people here.
This situation for the poor is common in many parts of the country, in both rural and urban areas. Even if the poor here met the World Bank's new poverty line measure of $1.90 a day, many here say it won't be enough for them to live on.
Even earning less than $2 a day is tough. Saida's husband, Iqbal, is well aware of his family's plight, but says there's not much he can do about it.
I don't have any work, so obviously we are poor. We are just managing to survive. Somehow I managed to get work to feed my children. I'm not trained or educated to go and get a proper job. All I can do is manual labor.
These are common complaints.
Poverty levels are increasing,
but it's made worse, according to those who work with the poor, by some basic services being privatized, driving up costs even further.
You have the poor having to access high-cost public services, be it in education, be it in hospitals, be it in water. Therefore, that model is the reason why even if people get $2 a day, they are still poor because you can't access basic services, you can't get decent jobs.
Experts say India's rapid economic growth is another reason why artificial poverty lines don't reflect realities on the ground, where people are just trying to survive. Fez Jamil, Al Jazeera, New Delhi.
Herbal medicine in South Africa is under threat because of strict regulations in national parks. Well, now a bush doctor has come up with an urban solution to help protect part of the country's rural heritage. From Cape Town, here's Tanya Page.
Neville Van Skalkwyk comes to the National Park in Cape Town to be inspired. He's a bush doctor. The healing powers of these plants have been used for centuries, but unlike his ancestors, the Khoisan, he's supposed to have a permit to pick herbs.
At the first instance, it's not on. We've been picking herbs through the generations, our people, indigenous people of the Western Cape, without permits.
The restrictions mean herb sellers like Dorothy Williams struggle to get enough stock, yet demand is high.
There's a lot of youth that is coming onto herbs, you see. So they know where the knowledge is and where they get the right stuff.
Jawaya Abrahams' grandmother is one such convert. She says bush doctor Van Skalkwyk's pain-relieving oil is better than the cream prescribed by the doctor.
We started using the oil that he recommended to us. And then we started to see that she wasn't like restless at night from complaining about the pain.
The challenge is how to keep ancient traditions alive in a modern world full of rules and regulations. The UN recognises this national park as one of the richest areas for plants in the world. It should be protected, but finding a balance between preserving nature and tradition is difficult. Van Skalkwyk has come up with a compromise. It's a herb garden right in the heart of the township, where the people need it most. It has all the herbs bush doctors need.
It is good for chest complaint, colds, flu. Our people used to use it for the high blood pressure.
By moving the herbs closer to the houses in a city that sprawls at the foot of the mountains, he's keeping an increasingly urban people in touch with their healing roots. Tanya Page, Al Jazeera, Cape Town, South Africa.
It's considered one of the most daunting and dangerous rivers in the world for whitewater rafting. The Gauley in the U.S. state of West Virginia draws people from all over the world to try their luck on its rapids. It's from there that Gabriel Elizondo reports.
With paddles in hand, they are geared up to face one of the world's wildest rivers. It's the Gauley, and it's particularly ferocious because for 6 weeks every fall, the floodgates of a nearby dam are opened wide, sending a huge amount of water gushing down the river.
It makes the rapids really optimal for whitewater rafting.
Heather Allen and Lee Towndrow came all the way from the UK.
It's just a challenge for us.
The reason why we're doing it, for the challenge, for the thrill.
Let's go gently forward.
A few minutes in, and the force of the Gauley Rapids are evident.
Forward!
The guide shouts out commands.
Forward! Forward all!
Because every paddle stroke is critical.
Stop!
They make it out, but there's more to come.
Rapids are ranked based on their difficulty, 1 being the easiest, 5 being the most difficult. Here on the Gauley, there are 14 Class 4 rapids, and 6 Class 5s, including this one called Pillow Rock. There's a sheer drop-off. They say it's the 10 most exhilarating seconds of whitewater rafting.